Some of the best-selling butter brands in America contain almost no real cream. And here's the part most people never find out. A few of them charge premium prices to do it. The butter looks simple. It looks honest. Every brand shows you the same thing. Clean packaging, dairy farm imagery, words like churned and pure. But read the actual ingredient list and a completely different picture emerges. Purified water listed first. Soybean oil second. A yogurt claim that accounts for 10% of the formula. A canola blend processed with an industrial chemical solvent, with no mention of it anywhere on the front label. Today we're counting down 11 brands you should think twice about. Saving the worst for last. A product that is 70% water and still calls itself a spread. Then we're revealing the 5 that are genuinely real butter. From the best everyday option to the single best jar you can buy right now. Every fact in this video comes straight from the ingredient label. Let's get into it. Number 11. Challenge Butter. Clean packaging. California dairy branding. A price just below what you'd pay for something premium. You grab it, thinking you've made a smart call. Here's what you actually bought. In the United States, a product must contain at least 80% milk fat to be legally sold as butter. That's the legal floor, the bare minimum. Challenge Butter hits exactly 80%, not a single point above it. That's not coincidence. That's a cost decision, not a quality one. And you feel it the moment you pick up a knife. Straight from the fridge, this butter resists. When it finally moves, it doesn't glide, it drags. That's what minimum fat and maximum moisture feels like in practice. The flavor follows the same logic. Nothing offensive, nothing there either. It tastes like the memory of butter without any of the actual pleasure. The unsalted version is marketed specifically for baking. Your cookies, your cakes, your pastry dough. Butter is supposed to bring something to those recipes. Make a batch of butter cookies with this, and the result is flat, forgettable. Fine, if butter is a background ingredient, the moment it's supposed to be the point, this brand will let you down. Minimum price for a minimum product. And this is number 11. It gets more serious from here. Number 10. Breakstones. Breakstones has been producing butter in upstate New York since 1881. For decades, it had a distinction nobody else could touch. It was the only certified kosher butter on the market. Every ingredient met kosher standards. Zero cross-contamination risk for shoppers who need that assurance. It was the only door open. But kosher certification speaks to religious compliance. It tells you nothing about flavor, sourcing, or what the cows are eating. Break's unsalted butter makes that gap immediately visible. It's one of the palest butters on any grocery shelf, barely a yellow tint. That color, or lack of it, is a direct signal. Grass-fed cows produce milk rich in beta-carotene, which gives real butter its natural golden hue. Near white butter means grain-fed cows. Grain-fed milk produces blander butter. The taste confirms it. But then something stranger happens. You're eating unsalted butter, and it turns tangy. Where's that coming from? The answer is buried in the ingredient list. Natural flavors. No further detail. The USDA permits this vagueness. Brands have no legal obligation to tell you what those natural flavors actually are. Whatever Breakstones is using adds an off note to an already underwhelming product. In place of clean butter taste, you're getting a mystery ingredient doing something your taste buds never asked for. The brand holds its kosher aisle corner because it has almost no competition there. Outside that specific lane, there's very little reason to reach for it. Number 9. Great Value Butter from Walmart. At $36 per pound with a USDA Gradia stamp, this looks like the budget shopper slam dunk. Real butter, real certification, hard to argue with. Then you find out about RBDH. RBST, also called RBGH, is a synthetic growth hormone injected into dairy cows to force them to produce more milk than their biology would naturally allow. The European Union banned it, Canada banned it, Australia banned it, the United Kingdom banned it. The concern is the toll on the animals. RBC is directly linked to mastitis, a painful udder infection, and to lameness in cows. The physical damage was enough for most of the developed world to decide the extra yield simply wasn't worth it. In the US, it remains legal, and Great Value Butter carries no RUPST-free guarantee. Here's what makes that particularly striking. Pick up a carton of Great Value milk at the same Walmart, and you'll see a no Wurst pledge right on the label. Walmart made that commitment for its milk. It chose not to extend it to its butter. Same store, same brand, different rules. A shopper who carefully selects the Wurst-free milk and then grabs the butter from the same dairy case may not realize those two products were made under entirely different standards. Reach for the great value butter spread with canola oil, and there's another layer. The canola oil and added beta-carotene dull the flavor and introduce an artificial undertone that doesn't belong near toast. The tub is also routinely not full. Consumers have opened 15 ounces tubs to find closer to 11 ounces of actual spread inside. The rest is air. You're paying for the packaging as much as you're paying for food. Number 8. Land O'Lakes. Over 160 million units sold every year. Land O'Lakes dominates. The core butter does what butter is supposed to do. But this brand doesn't only sell butter, and that's exactly where the story gets complicated. The butter canola blends are enormously popular because they solve a real problem. Regular butter is hard to spread straight from the fridge. A canola blend stays soft at refrigerator temperature. That convenience is genuine. But the canola oil used here comes with a concern the brand doesn't advertise. It's a GMO-derived canola oil refined using hexane, a chemical solvent used in the extraction process. Experts acknowledge that only trace amounts survive into the final product. The issue isn't acute harm from a single use. The issue is that no long-term research exists on what daily low-level hexane exposure does over years of consistent use. We don't know, and that's the part the label leaves out. Then there's the light butter canola blend. The ingredient list includes modified food starch, tapioca maltodextrin, mono and diglycerides, PGPR, sodium benzoate, potassium sorbate, natural flavor, xanthan gum, and beta-carotene. Real butter has two ingredients, cream and salt. The light blend has fewer calories. That part is true. What it doesn't say is what filled that space. A lineup of additives that can spike blood sugar, cause digestive discomfort, and introduce compounds with no meaningful long-term safety record. Fewer calories is not a better product. The label is counting on you not to make that distinction. Number 7. Brumlin Brown. This is the one positioned as the healthy choice. Made with real yogurt, 0% trans fat, clean design. A shopper trying to make a smarter swap from regular butter could easily be convinced this is the answer. It isn't. Right on the tub in print most people walk past, it says 35% vegetable oil spread. Not butter, not margarine, a spread. That classification matters. Butter requires at least 80% fat from milk, vegetable oils, or a blend. Fall below that threshold, and you can legally claim neither. Brummel and Brown at 35% vegetable oil doesn't come close to either category. About that yogurt the front label highlights, it accounts for approximately 10% of the formula. The first two ingredients are purified water and soybean oil. Yogurt appears after that, followed by palm oil and a line of additives. The ingredient the brand leads with is 10th in line behind things most health-conscious shoppers actively try to avoid. You're buying a water and oil emulsion dressed in health language. The front label is doing all the work the product can't. If this breakdown is useful so far, a quick like helps more people find it. Number 6. I can't believe it's not butter. You have to acknowledge the marketing here, even as it works against you. When a brand puts the word butter in large type on the front of the packaging, that's what your brain locks onto. The I can't believe it's not part functions as near invisible fine print, even when it's right there. The brand knows this. The product is described as having a rich, buttery flavor and positioned as a direct stand-in for butter in any situation. The implication is clear, even when the literal claim technically isn't. Older tubs listed 45% vegetable oils right on the label. That information has since quietly left the packaging. What remains is a product built primarily on water and various oils, and it tastes exactly like that. The mouthfeel is wrong. The flavor is thin. There's no richness because there's no cream. The most serious problem in this lineup is the cooking spray. Consumers filed a lawsuit against the company for advertising 0 calories per spray. The FDA allows spray products to list 0 calories if a single serving defined as a fraction of a second spray contains fewer than 5 calories. But nobody uses a fraction of a second spray when they're actually cooking. Real-world use adds up fast, and the full bottle contains approximately 700 calories and 80 grams of fat. Consumers argued the zero-calorie claim was materially misleading given how the product is actually used. The spray is also the only product in the lineup that contains artificial preservatives, a meaningful contrast to the natural-sounding image the brand projects everywhere else. The name tells you it's not butter. It just bet you won't fully register that. Number 5. Parkett. If you were around for Park's TV ads in the 70s and 80s, you might remember the famous commercials where the tub of spread would speak up and insist it was butter. Clever, memorable. It built a belief in an entire generation of consumers that Parkett was in some meaningful way equivalent to the real thing. It wasn't then, it isn't now. Parkett is made primarily from soybean oil, palm kernel oil, and palm oil held together with the standard array of preservatives. The detail that deserves attention is the flavoring or the lack of disclosure around it. Parkett contains both natural and artificial flavors listed without any further specification. Artificial flavorings are frequently synthesized from prochemical sources. The starting material is not food. We don't know which specific compounds are being used, and no comprehensive long-term research tracks what daily consumption of those compounds does over years of use. That's the part you don't see on the label. Then there's the Parkett Squeeze Bottle, a liquid product made from soybean oil and hydrogenated cottonseed oil. Cottonseed oil carries a concern most other vegetable oils don't. Cotton is a textile crop, not a food crop. It's one of the most heavily pesticide-treated crops in agriculture. Treated with compounds developed for industrial use, not for anything meant to end up in a food supply. The refining process removes most of those residues. Most. There's no guarantee it removes all of them, and no rigorous long-term study exists on what regular cottonseed oil consumption does to human health over time. Every time that squeeze bottle gets used, an unknown risk gets accepted. Real butter doesn't come with that conversation. Number 4. Blue Bonnet. Blue Bonnet was created as an affordable alternative when butter was a genuine luxury for many families. For a period, it was a legitimate margarine brand. That era is long over. What the Blue Bonnet name is attached to today is a 31% vegetable oil spread. Not margarine, not close to butter, not close to either. The primary oils are soybean, palm kernel, and palm oil. 3 separate artificial preservatives are in the formula, along with artificial flavoring. The history here matters more than most people know. For decades, Blue Bonnet contained partially hydrogenated soybean oil, the primary dietary source of industrial trans fats, which are directly and conclusively linked to cardiovascular disease. Not years, decades. The FDA eventually forced a reformulation across the entire food industry, and Blue Bonnet changed its formula only when required to. Today, the brand promotes that its spread has less fat and cholesterol than butter. That's technically true. What goes unmentioned is what replaced those fats. A combination of artificial preservatives that can cause digestive problems and insensitive individuals may trigger respiratory symptoms. Sodium benzoate, one of those preservatives, has been associated in research with increased hyperactivity in children. Parents reaching for Blue Bonnet as a budget-friendly, seemingly harmless spread may not be factoring that in. A brand that sold a cardiovascular risk for decades and changed only when legally forced to tells you something clear about where product quality sits in its priorities. Number 3. Smart Balance Original Buttery Spread. Smart Balance might be the most aggressive health claim in the entire spread category. Hard healthy fats, omega-3s, low trans fats. It reads like something developed in collaboration with cardiologists to actively protect your heart. Examine the actual product and the picture is considerably less convincing. Start with the omega-3 claim, 400 milligrams printed in bold on the front of the packaging. Most people see that and think of the omega-3 in oily fish, DHA, and EPA. The forms backed by decades of research on cardiovascular health, brain function, and inflammation. What Smart Balance actually contains is ALA, alpha-lolinic acid, a plant-based omega-3. These are not interchangeable. The human body converts ALA into DHA and EPA, but at a poor rate. And 400 milligrams isn't a quantity that moves any measurable cardiovascular needle, even at optimal conversion. If you want omega-3s your heart actually benefits from, Eat chia seeds, hemp seeds, or walnuts. More usable quantity, a fraction of the cost. No misleading packaging required. Then there's what this product actually is. Buttery Spread is a legal designation for a yellow butter-like alternative. It carries no requirement to contain any butter whatsoever. Smart Balance is built from 64% vegetable oils, which puts it below the 80% fat threshold required to even be called margarine. It's not margarine. It's not butter. It's a spread, and the healthy language wrapped around it. Omega-3 Heart Healthy, low trans fat, takes real nutritional concepts and deploys them in ways that are technically defensible, but practically misleading. Someone buys this specifically because they believe it's protecting their heart. That belief is not supported by what's actually in the tub. Number 2. Country Crock Original. Country Crock has a particular warmth to it. The barn illustration, the word churned, the implied American heritage. The packaging makes you feel like you're buying something wholesome and traditional. The ingredient reality is a different story entirely. Start with the plant-based lines, because this is where Country Crock has drawn organized pushback from more than one direction. Simultaneously, consumers filed a class action lawsuit against the brand over its plant-based butter with olive oil. The central argument: olive oil is the front of package selling point, the premium ingredient that justifies choosing this over a cheaper alternative. But olive oil is only a small fraction of the actual formula. The bulk is built from cheaper oils: soybean, canola, palm kernel, and palm oil. The exact same structure applies to the plant-based butter with avocado oil. The premium ingredient named on the front exists in the product in name more than in substance. You're paying for a premium ingredient that's largely there for the label. The American Butter Institute and the National Milk Producers Federation have filed formal complaints with the FDA about Country Crock using the word butter on products that contain no dairy whatsoever. Butter is a dairy product. Plant-based oil blends are not. Industry groups argue the labeling misleads consumers about the fundamental nature of what they're buying, and it's hard to disagree. As for the original Country Crock, the version that's been in American refrigerators for generations, it is now a 38% vegetable oil spread. It is no longer margarine. But here's the detail that reveals most clearly how this brand thinks about consumer awareness. The 38% vegetable oil content is printed in green ink against a green background. You would need to be actively hunting for it to find it. What catches your eye is the barn and the word churned. Most of what you're buying is water and oil. The packaging is the most carefully made thing in the tub, and now the one that takes the top spot for all the wrong reasons. Number 1. Imperial Spread. Imperial has existed in various formulations for decades. Every version has been a disappointment. The current product is the clearest example of what happens when a brand abandons any real commitment to what it's supposed to be making. Imperial Spread is sold as a 27% vegetable oil spread. Read that again: 27%. At 27% fat, this product doesn't credibly qualify as a vegetable oil spread by any meaningful standard. It's nowhere near margarine. It's nowhere near butter. If there are baseline standards for what constitutes a legitimate food product in this category, Imperial operates below them. The price signals everything without requiring any label reading. $3.97 for a 45 ounces tub. But here's what 27% fat means for the rest of what's in there. 70% is purified water. No cream, no dairy of any kind. You are purchasing a water and oil mixture that has been emulsified and packaged as something you'd spread on bread. And when you taste it, the gap between what this is and what it implies becomes something you physically feel. Imperial lands flat on the tongue. It leaves a greasy film that coats the inside of your mouth and doesn't clear. That's what happens when oil and water don't have enough fat content to bind properly. The oil just sits there because nothing in the formula creates the cohesion that real butter or even a decent margarine produces. It tastes like a product that costs $3.97 for 45 ounces, because that's precisely what it is. Tight budgets are real, and people will keep buying this. But you now know what that price is actually buying. Mostly water with a label implying something else entirely. Now that you know what to avoid, here are the brands that actually held up. Best option number 5. Vital Farms Butter. Most American butter brands hit the 80% milk fat floor and stop there. Vital Farms doesn't operate that way. Their butter lands between 83% and 85% milk fat, and that additional fat is immediately noticeable in everything it touches. Sourcing is where this brand makes its clearest separation. The cows producing this milk are 90% grass-fed, and the breed selection is deliberate, primarily Jersey and Guernsey, which naturally produce cream that's richer and higher in fat than the Holstein cows most commercial dairies rely on. The result is a butter with a deep natural golden color that comes directly from the beta-carotene in the grass. No artificial colorants, no lab-added anything. Just what happens when cows eat what they evolved to eat. 2 ingredients, milk and salt. That is the complete list. For baking, the higher fat and lower moisture produce real measurable results. Cakes rise more fully, cookies crisp more evenly, and the butter flavor carries through the finished product in a way that 80% butters simply cannot replicate. The honest caveat is price. An 8 ounces block runs about $4.99. For daily toast or morning eggs, that's difficult to justify every week. For baking, where butter is the reason the recipe exists, this is the right call. Best option number 4, TUC Sea Salted Butter. TUC has been a Pacific Northwest dairy institution since 1909. The standard it holds across its entire range, ice cream, cheese, yogurt, butter, is consistent, no corners cut. The butter upholds that completely. A minimum of 81% milk fat in both the salted and unsalted versions. The difference from minimum standard butters is apparent immediately. Extra creamy in a way that suggests good cheese without any of the sharp dairy edge. Spreads smoothly, melts cleanly. The flavor is exactly what butter should taste like. No chemical tang, no artificial undertone, no oiliness, just cream and salt, because that's literally the ingredient list. What makes TUC work as an everyday butter is where it sits on the fat spectrum. Above the 80% floor, but below the intensity of full European-style butters. That balance means it integrates cleanly across a wider range of recipes without overpowering delicate baked goods the way a richer cultured butter might. Real flavor, real lift without dominating the dish. At $5.96 millicents per pound for major retailers, it costs more than anything on the avoid list. It will also never produce a disappointing result. For everyday cooking and baking by home cooks, this is the answer. Best option number 3, Vermont Creary Cultured Butter. If you haven't used cultured butter before, this one will genuinely change your frame of reference for what butter can taste like. Vermont Creary produces a European-style cultured butter, and the production method is fundamentally different from everything else in this category. What cultured means in practice? Fresh cream is allowed to ferment before churning. Live bacterial cultures are introduced and held overnight. During that time, the bacteria convert lactose into lactic acid, building a flavor complexity that no additive or processing shortcut can replicate. The result is a butter that tastes like a natural collaboration between butter and a fine yogurt. Savory, tangy in a way that's entirely earned, and deeply rich in a way that's immediately distinct. The fat content supports that profile, up to 86% milk fat, among the highest commercially available in the United States. The texture is correspondingly velvety. It coats the palate in a way that lingers in the best possible sense. Vermont Creary has earned formal recognition from the American Cheese Society, the Specialty Food Association, and the World Dairy Expo. Professional bakers who try it tend not to go back to anything else. Approximately $5.79 for an 8 ounces package. It ranks third rather than first because of practicality. The intensity and fat content aren't suited to every recipe, and the price makes daily use difficult to sustain. But for applications where butter is the entire point of what you're making, nothing on this list is better. Best option number 2, Plug Rat. Plug doesn't announce itself. Plain foil wrapper. No bold health claims. No celebrity behind it. No story on the packaging. In a dairy aisle, built to capture attention, this one gets walked past constantly. That is a genuine loss for every shopper who misses it. Plugra was developed for professional pastry chefs and culinary kitchens, not for retail shelves. The standard was built accordingly. 82% milk fat meeting the minimum European butter specification. The American Culinary Federation awarded it their seal of approval in 2009, and it's been a staple in serious cooking circles ever since. It's in regular grocery stores now, and most home cooks have no idea it's there. The plain butter delivers exactly what professional kitchens rely on it for. Mashed potatoes that taste noticeably more considered, pastry dough with better lamination, sauces with more depth. But the spreadable version, with sea salt and olive oil, deserves specific attention. Not just for the flavor, but for what it proves is possible. After everything we covered in the avoid list, hexane processed canola, mono and diglycerides, sodium benzoate, xanthan gum, here is a butter spread with added olive oil containing exactly 5 ingredients: cream, olive oil, salt, sea salt, and natural flavors. No chemical solvents, no artificial preservatives, no additives filling the space where fat should be. 5 ingredients that belong together, combined well, producing something genuinely excellent. Every brand on the avoid list that loads a butter blend with a dozen additives is making a deliberate choice. Plagra makes the opposite one. The product is better for it. Best option number 1. Kerrygold Pure Irish Butter. When the conversation turns to which butter is actually worth buying, Kerrygold is where it tends to end. It holds an effectively unanimous position as the best-tasting commercially available butter in the United States. No credible counter-argument gets far. The foundation is sourcing. Irish cows grazing on outdoor pasture for up to 312 days per year. Ireland's climate makes this possible in a way most dairy regions can't sustain. The grass grows year-round, the land stays consistently green, and the cows eat what ruminants evolved to eat. The effect on the butter is direct, measurable, and visible before you break the wrapper. A minimum of 82% milk fat meeting the European standard, and a deep, natural golden yellow that requires no artificial beta-carotene, no lab-added color of any kind. That gold comes from the grass, through the milk, into the butter. You can see the sourcing difference before you taste it. The flavor is unlike standard American butter, in a way that's immediately obvious. A floral quality, a natural sweetness sitting just underneath the creaminess. A richness that doesn't feel dense or heavy. It melts readily, integrates into dishes without overpowering them, and has enough character that you notice it clearly when butter is the focus of what you're making. And Kerrygold proves a point the entire avoid list refuses to acknowledge. The Kerrygold spreadable version, soft and ready straight from the refrigerator, contains 2 ingredients, cream and salt. Nothing else. No emulsifiers, no preservatives, no chemical assistance. It achieves what other brands told you required a dozen additives using only cream and salt. The flavored range is the same story. The cinnamon and sugar blend is made from butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, salt, lemon juice concentrate, and nutmeg. Real ingredients, transparent formula, a result that earns the reputation. Every brand on the avoid list knows that an honest, clean product is achievable. They are choosing margin over it. Kerrygold makes the other choice. That is why it sits at the top. If you've made it this far and found this useful, the like button actually helps get this in front of people who need to see it. Here's what the 5 best brands all have in common. Not one of them needs artificial flavors, synthetic preservatives, or chemically processed oils to make a product worth buying. They need good milk from well-fed cows and a process that respects the ingredient. The brands on the avoid list know this too. They aren't failing to reach quality. They are choosing not to pursue it. Next time you're in the butter aisle, you know what 2 ingredients looks like. You know that cream and salt is the benchmark. And you know that anything beyond those 2 words is worth a second look. And now you know exactly what that second look might find. And if you think what's happening in the butter aisle is surprising, the olive oil industry has been running nearly the same operation for years, filling bottles, labeling them extra virgin, and banking on the assumption that most people won't look closely enough to notice the difference. That's a story worth knowing before you open another bottle.